Okay, guys, so I am going to talk to you about this PowerPoint right here. It's called the Historical Investigation. This PowerPoint is really meaningful to me. I made this 5 or 6 years ago now. I use it every year at the start of school to help students with what I think is the most valuable thing that I teach you guys, and it's research. Um, History is great. History is amazing. I love teaching history. But I don't think that's going to be the thing that lasts with you no matter what walk of life you go into after high school. Some of you might go into something like history and pre-law. Others might go into something completely different. So the skill that I really want to transfer to you guys is the ability to research. And I call this whole process the historical investigation. So how do you develop a research question in history? This is something that is kind of the main theme of this PowerPoint right here. So, the name of this slide is very important. It's called the research process. I think that this is the most important phrase that you guys can understand. Researching is just that. It is a process. It is something that is long. It is something that, if done correctly, is a very drawn-out thing. It's not, in this age of kind of instant gratification that we live in, research is not very instant gratification. It's not something as simple as typing something into Google and clicking on the first thing you see, and all of a sudden you know the answer. I feel like that's one of the biggest misconceptions, especially in history, because finding the truth is very difficult. One of the things that's very special about what we do, and you guys are now enrolled in this course, you're all historians, right? One of the things that historians have to deal with is the fact that we're not math, we're not science, we don't operate in laws. In math, once you learn the law, you then know what the outcome is going to be, because it all follows the laws. History does not work like that. There's not necessarily a right answer, and history changes a lot. The story changes over time. One of my favorite activities is what we do it. You take the word history and you break it down into two things. You get his story, right? We're all just telling each other a story. Some stories have different chapters to it. Some stories have different characters in it, but it is all just a story. So we have to learn how to navigate that, and it's a process to learn how to navigate all of these different stories that we're kind of either reading or watching or listening to. So usually when you embark on this research process and you start it, you get very, very, very discouraged, because it is, right now if I were to go into Google and I were to type World War II, I'd probably get 25 million results. And where do I start? And it's discouraging, because again, I'm not Googling, when is Jackie Robinson's birthday, right? Jackie Robinson just passed in Major League Baseball. That's why I said that. That's one answer, right? That's not history. That's a fact. History, World War II, has a lot of search results. Where do I start? It's very, very, very natural to get discouraged in the beginning of the research process, because it's more like a scavenger hunt than anything else. You're trying to find different kernels of evidence and trying to figure out what to do with that evidence. And as you're looking at all these books and interviews and pictures and diaries and movies and textbooks and journals and speeches and all these other things, you often get lost in the sources. That's what I wrote right here. You just have, it's information overload. You don't know what to do with all the information that you have. And it gives me the same question every single time. Every year when people start the research process in this class, they ask me the same question. How do you interpret all of the different types of sources? And my answer is very, very simple, which is why I made this PowerPoint, to try and teach you the different steps of the process, or at least how I have done the process in the past, and I break it down for you guys. It's to observe. This is the most important step right here. Very often I find that, kids, adults, it doesn't really matter. They jump to conclusions way too quickly. This would be the equivalent of me typing in World War II into Google and clicking on the first 2 or 3 results in Google, reading them extensively, understanding them, and then thinking I have the entire picture. 99.9% of the time, that is not going to be the case. You cannot just read 1 or 2 things and then jump to your conclusion. All right? Step 1 is always going to be observe. Click on 10, 11 different sites. Watch 5 or 6 different YouTube videos. Read a couple paragraphs here and there in different books, and just soak up as much information as you possibly can. Just observe. That is always going to be step 1. So now what I want you guys to do, I'm not going to go through all these for you. I've got, I don't even know, I should have counted, but there are a couple of pictures in a row. The objective here is I want to test your observation skills. If you were in class with me, those of you who are going to be in class, we're going to do this live and in person. For those of you who are doing this virtually, it's very important that you click through this quickly. I don't want you to really look at these pictures well yet. So go at about this speed. All right, thoughts? And now there's going to be a worksheet with this. I want you to kind of think about what you just saw, and I want you to maybe jump to a conclusion. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to let you digest that for a second. Now, every year the same thing happens. I ask, thoughts. Someone raises their hand in class and says, Mr. G, I saw the Holocaust. I saw concentration camps. And that's exactly what I want you guys to think there. That is jumping to a conclusion. That would be an incorrect conclusion based on this PowerPoint. Because yes, you did see images from the Holocaust, but you also saw images of something else. And that would be like clicking on the first 2 or 3 search results in World War II and assuming that you have the entire story. Or again, step 1 is observe. It's not to analyze. Step 1 is observe. So just to learn how to sit there and soak up information. And don't really dive into it yet, because the quicker you dive in, the quicker you might be making a mistake. All right? So for the second part of this, the second step is just that, analyze. So after you've observed, after you've compiled all of these sources in your historical investigation, in your research process, then you analyze. Then you go in and you start to read for meaning. You start to listen to the YouTube video a little bit more closely. You start to jot down notes. You start to pick things apart and ask questions, right? That's the most important thing when you analyze something, is asking yourself questions and then trying to find those answers, okay? So step 2 in this, you're going to analyze it. If you're in class, we would do this together. If you're at home, I want you to really take your time, all right? I want you to go in and say, okay, this picture, what do I see here? All right, what am I getting out of this picture? I see a building. I see train tracks. And I want you to write all of this stuff down. It's very important that you write down. Get used to that process of writing down notes and ideas as you're analyzing different sources. I see people. I see grass. Right? I see all of these different things. I want you to make a list. Then, once you're comfortable that you think you've seen everything from this picture, you've analyzed everything, go to the next one. All right, what do I see in this picture? All right, and so on and so forth. And go through all of the pictures. All right, we're going to scroll through real quick. Go at your own pace and make sure you analyze everything. Try and figure out all the different elements of the pictures. All right, now you've analyzed. Now it's okay to embark on the next step of this and start to draw your own conclusions. You are now knowledgeable. When you click on the first 2 things in Google, you're not knowledgeable enough to draw a conclusion. Now that you've analyzed a couple sources and you've really broken them down properly and asked yourself questions and maybe found the answers to those questions, you can draw a conclusion, all right, or several conclusions. Again, there's space on the worksheet for you to draw conclusions. I'll be interested to see what you guys come up with. The activity stops here. You can go on. Now that you've observed and analyzed, now you're almost doing a little bit more research. So now there might be some really big questions that you ask, or you might have a to what extent question, a research question that you need to ask yourself, and you need to compile a couple more resources to really get to the bottom of that question. But the activity is over already. If you guys want to look at... oh, I forgot this part. I forgot that this was here. when you're dealing with sources and when you're doing a historical investigation like we just did, it's very important to get different types of variety of different sources. All right, so over here, we've got different types of primary and secondary sources, books, newspapers, magazines, diaries, journals, all that good stuff. Then it's often important to get different perspectives in your sources as well. So I say pro-topic, anti-topic, right? Pro-topic. If my topic was, the Nazi Party was good for Germany in the 1930s, right? It's an opinion, you might not share it, it's fine, that's not the point of this. Pro-topic would be an article saying the Nazi Party was good for Germany in the 1930s. Anti-topic would be the Nazi Party was not good for Germany in the 1930s. And you need both of those to really make a good judgment, right? Outside perspective would be, okay, an inside perspective would be an article from Germany in the 1930s, right? An outside perspective would be maybe from the United States in the 1930s. Time period source would be from the 1930s. A present-day source would be, like now, looking back at Nazi Germany in the 1930s. So make sure you compile all of these different types of sources in your research when you finally do get to embark in research in this class. The last thing, I'm just going to skip through this stuff. This is the kind of answer to the ultimate research question, the conclusions that we could have drawn. I'm going to let you guys mess around with this if you want. You don't really need to explore this part of the PowerPoint. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go back to the slide where it says draw conclusions. So right here, all right, I'm going to leave you guys with this slide. I want you to jot down your conclusions. I want you to jot down the thoughts that you have after you've analyzed the pictures. And at the end of the week, I'm going to post another video where I talk about the conclusions that we came to during class. So if you're at home, we can make sure that we're all on the same page. All right. I hope you guys enjoy this activity. I think it should be meaningful for the remainder of the 2 years that I have you for. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know if you have any questions. And as always, be good.